Welcome to the Point of Difference Rugby League podcast. I'm your host, Dave, and today we're going back in the day with a Manly Sea Eagles legend. He also had a stint at the South Queensland Crushers. It's the one and only John Jones. How are you, man?
G'day, Dave, mate. I'm very humble, actually. I'm in the company of champions. You've had some absolute superstars on your podcast, and I feel very privileged.
Oh, mate, the privilege is all mine, mate. Anyone who played the great game is always welcome on the podcast. I love all you guys. You're all champions. Anyone who played, a game, whether it's park footy, state of origin, international, doesn't matter to me. You're all champions in my eyes. So,
Oh,
what you
that's
been up
great.
to, man? How's your summer been so far?
Yeah, mate. I've just had a stint in hospital. Actually, I just getting old thing. I think just a bit of an issue with the veins in my legs. Yeah, possibly football related, but it's not from being fast. I can tell you. Yeah, so I just had a couple of days in hospital, but mate, yeah, still enjoying life in Brisbane.
Nice. So you're in Brisbane these days. I see. And my dad's from Brisbane, so I'm sort of half Australian. People like to give me shit for that over here, but I'm still proud of it. But I'm very much a Kiwi, though.
Yeah, I'd say so, mate. Some of the things I've seen on your podcasts, it looks a pretty good place.
It's not bad, mate. I'm living in Christchurch, which is obviously South Island, and we've moved to a little village called Sumner, right on the beach. It's not a bad gig, I tell you.
Yeah, life's
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, man. Right. So let's rewind the clock, man. So what was life like for you as a young fella growing up, and what was that journey into getting into rugby league?
It's funny. I've been listening to, as I said, to some of the podcasts with the likes of Dave Hoskins and Wayne Chisholm and Jeff Tuvey, and we're all like Manly local juniors, which was fantastic. But back in the day, like we obviously followed Manly, and it was more than just it was like a religion. We were just so passionate about loving Manly, and
Yeah.
I got something to show you when I was 4 years old. I got this photo. I don't know
Who
if you
was
can
that?
see it.
Yeah, yeah,
I was
yeah.
4 years old, 4 years old, and I got my first Manly jumper. And I was royalty. I was the king at the neighbourhood. But we had a neighbour called Rube Hudson who was a director at Manly Football Club, and he used to wash the jerseys back in the day. So we
Okay.
used to go there and actually watch the Manly first grade jerseys dry on the line, and that's how
Wow.
passionate we were about it. So growing up, just absolutely loved Manly. When I was about 8 years old, I think I went across the park again, and Manly were training there, and I actually got to catch the ball that Graham Eadie was kicking goals, and who would have thought? But the great Graham Eadie, he was only a young kid from Woy Woy, and yeah, mate, I've just been so passionate about Manly all my life.
Mate, that's so cool. And speaking of jerseys, I have to give Aaron Whitaker a shout out. He sent me this beautiful Manly jersey. I
That's
mean, a lot of
awesome.
people wouldn't say beautiful because not many, unless you're a Manly guy, you don't support Manly. But I'm pretty neutral these days. So thank you very much, Aaron Whitaker and Dynasty Sport for
It
sending me
looks
this for the
great.
podcast.
No, you look
It's
great.
pretty awesome. Yeah, man. So, what was it about the game when you started playing that you loved so much? Were you always a forward, like right from day dot, and loved
No,
like sort of
definitely
banging into
not.
people?
Definitely not always a forward, but yeah, the old man played for Balmain in the local juniors. He was born and bred at Five Dock. He grew up playing rugby league. It was in our blood, and yeah, we played. I had an older brother, and we kicked the ball around as a youngster, and we weren't actually allowed to play till we were 7 years old. So
Okay.
I spent a few years on the sideline watching the brother run around, and yeah, it was exciting. Rugby league's just been part of the family. I still remember a youngster getting on the back of Dad's motorbike, going over to watch the grand final at the cricket ground, and things like that, And Manly just being being a Manly junior. You just grew up wanting to be part of Manly. So I started when I was 7 at Christian Brothers.
Yes.
And growing up, I was a halfback. Um,
Really?
Probably in the days where you didn't have to pass too much, I guess you pick the ball up and run. So I did that for a few years. Interesting enough, I one of my greatest things in my childhood growing up was we played a bit of junior representative football, and my coach was a Dr. Merv Cross. Now Merv
Okay.
Cross was a surgeon back then, and he went on to be a famous surgeon, and recently passed, unfortunately. But he was a coach of the Manly Juniors, and his son Joseph played, and we had this Dr. Merv Cross who was just so revered already as a doctor, and he went on to do a lot of surgery in the first grade footballers. Many first graders would know him, and being a strict Catholic, we used to say a prayer before the game, and it was quite funny because we're all there sitting there, 13 of us saying a Hail Mary before we played rugby league. So probably why I didn't get injured when I was young.
Oh, mate, whatever works, mate. Whatever works. I say.
Yeah, so
That's
grew
brilliant.
up grew up playing in the local area for Christian Brothers, and went to a club called Beacon Hill up on the hill in Brookvale, and spent a few years, very good years there. My brother played, my dad played, and yeah, it's always been part of our lives.
Yeah, I find a lot of players, it's always sort of like just a bit like a generational thing. You're like the next cab off the rank. Way you go, son, get out there, go smash some blokes.
Yeah, I think rugby league a bit like boxing. You get to get a lot of your aggression out of you when you're young, and I think it allays any frustration I don't know, you might have. I think it's a great thing to get that out of your system, and therefore you don't seem to run into trouble with have too much time on your hands because you're always trying to do something. And look, it certainly helped me out a lot. So I owe a lot to rugby league. I loved the training, and yeah, it did me good when I was growing up. So
That's brilliant. So you said you were a halfback. Like, did you enjoy playing in the halves? Was it always the intention to move into the forwards, or did you like being a playmaker back in the day?
I remember having this conversation with our coach at the time. And I said, I can't go in a scrum. I'm too fast and too good looking, but that wasn't the case. I grew into it. I got a bit tall. Mum's very tall, and I got tall, and I have a history of my family are all farmers, so we end up growing up too big for the halfback role, and
Okay.
yeah, I soon moved into the forwards. But yeah, I was pretty fortunate. Yeah, I had a lot of good players around me.
Yeah, man. Even being a halfback though, like I love asking, did you enjoy the contact initially? Like, did you love like getting hit or hitting blokes or running through guys, like running at that defensive line? Because
Yeah, as
you
a
know,
kid, as a youngster, I don't know if I warmed to the defence so much. Certainly, as you get older, and when you get put in the forwards, you got no real choice. But yeah, I was pretty lucky. I had good coaches, good footballers around me, and yeah, I was pretty lucky. I learned quick. But the one thing I guess, and I saw this with David's podcast and a few other boys, is that we had that desire. It wasn't about money. It was about putting the boots on for Manly,
yeah,
and you can't coach that desire. That's something that's inbuilt. And we were passionate about it. Like we just love the place. Like Brookvale Oval to me will always be the hallowed turf, and
yeah, man.
we adored the ground and we adored the place. So that was sort of driving you to do things and to try and get to there.
So on that, just off the cuff, what do you think now where players get paid so much money and it's more of a business, in comparison to when you guys played for the jersey and you wanted to play for your club, whereas kids now they'll go anywhere they can get a contract.
Yeah.
So what's your take on that?
Yeah, it's like saying what's the modern game like. I suppose yeah, and it is big money. Like I mean, the television rights have kicked in, and it is big money. But I wouldn't really swap. Of course, I'd love a bigger bank account, but I wouldn't swap the times that I had because we played with guys that were not getting paid much, and you could tell that they're just there because they loved it, and it certainly was a different game because of that. It's now a professional sport. I don't begrudge the guys getting any money they deserve. But yeah, look, you'd never say no to the big money, but it wasn't around then. And
Yeah.
even the generation before me I'd have conversations with Peter Sterling and to talk about the money then, and those guys must be blown away by the money that the players are getting today. So, but
Yeah.
we did all right. We did all right.
But at the same time, you don't have all that social media bullshit pressure that you can't do anything as a modern league day
Oh,
player now.
mate,
Like you cannot fuck up.
I still think players like Toddy Carney and other players are very unlucky because there's a lot more worse went on in our day that just wasn't filmed, and these poor blokes have been absolutely hammered. But yeah, I guess social media is as you're sort of trying to set up a podcast is hard for me, but
You did
no,
well. You got it working. You
we didn't
did
have to
well.
battle that. But no, mate, just always wanted to play for Manly, and very proud of just the fact that we actually got to pull the jumper on. So
Yeah, man. So what was that journey before you got to playing for Manly, like first grade? what was the journey coming through like those 10 years? Did you make the rep sides? Was there any pinnacle moment where you thought,
Yeah.
right, I want to really push on with this and have a crack for Manly?
Yeah, interesting. I did make a couple of the junior reps, the Harold Matthews and the Jersey Flag. I did miss out on 1 year, and that was a bit of a testing time of a 16, 17 because I was in the surf club at Freshwater at the time, and you're exploring different sports, and I'd always had that desire to play for Manly, but I sort of learned about 16, 17, 18 that you really needed to make a commitment to one sport. Like you,
Okay.
even though it was back in 1980s, not late 80s, that before it was professional, you really needed to be at your best to compete at that level. And I learned that through the President's Cup. And I had a guy called Bruce Walker who was the coach, and he's a very good Manly player, international, and he sort of pulled me aside and said, "Look, you've got a bit of ability, so if this is what you want to do, you've got to make your mind up now, because 18 is the time when these days they play first grade 18." But yeah, I'd made a big commitment to myself around that age.
Okay, so what did you do to put yourself in the best position to have a crack at first grade? Was it like extra training? Like what did you do
Yeah,
to
well,
prepare yourself?
the training back then, unlike today, it's sort of the education and awareness is a lot better. The training back then was like talking to older people. Ron Willie was a great mentor lives around the corner, and fortunate to know the family. And you picked up things from older people, and I saw firsthand what they did for training. I watched them train. I went and watched Manly train a lot.
Yeah,
But you're just trying to get the best out of yourself, so you try and build up your own fitness level. But with these are the days when you used to do the 10-kilometer road runs, and
yeah.
you do that sort of thing. So you thought if that was an advantage, you'd do it. So we did all that sort of stuff, but it was all basically on your own back. You didn't really have the education that's there today, where you've got exercise physiologists, you got all that sort of stuff happening, and
You got so much.
centers of excellence for us was the gym at the surf club. So
All
yeah,
the pub.
yeah, well, that was just up the road too. But yeah, we enjoyed keeping fit, and as I said, it kept us out of trouble, and yeah, it was very rewarding. So I got a few starts in the President's Cup, and then I got called up into the grade situation in '86, and that was back in the day where you'd see your name on the bench for under 23s in the program, and that was massive. Like you actually got
Yeah,
in the program on the bench. There was about 18 reserves for 23s, but you were there and your name was on the bench. That no one really understands how at the time that was massive.
yeah.
And I was so proud just to get that far. So,
Okay.
just to get on that. And some the people I've heard that have said, oh, yeah, unless you play international or whatever or 100 first, 300 first grade, I got my name on the bench for under 23s, and I was very proud. So
Right. Yeah.
my expectations might have been as high, but I was very, very happy.
Absolutely. And just on that, like how good were the days when you got programs and magazines with, the game previews or a grand final preview, but it's all in like a nice program or magazine and the team lists and
Oh,
I
no,
miss all that
I
stuff,
sold
man.
the programs. I sold the programs at Brookie Oval growing up.
Yeah.
And 15, I was selling the programs, and then I was going in to watch the footy. And then when the game had finished, you run on and grab the corner post, and you're not so much the players, but you just grab part of the corner post. If you come home with part of the corner post, you're a hero. So that was a cardboard corner post. And then you'd go up and say, and I used to go and pat Graham Eadie on the back, and I love
Yeah.
Wombat, loved him, and yeah. So they were days that we snuck in sometimes and under the fence to get in for free,
Yeah.
and we did all that stuff, and carton of beer on the cardboard on the back of the hill on the way down. You slide down. They're times in Brookie Oval I'll never forget. But it happened.
So that's what I love, the old days. The simple times where simple things made people happy. We didn't need phones. We didn't need the. But I'm grateful for the internet because we're having this conversation because of it, and that's
Yeah,
the
true.
positive side of it. But I
And
just
you're
love those
you're 3 hours
those simple
away.
days.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy, eh? So I read that you really had to bide your time in reserve grade for quite some time. So you played some reserve grade, and you got your break in first grade. Was it frustrating being held back in reserve grade for quite some time, or? like I'm actually getting a gauge just from you that you were quite content, like for 23. So were you quite contented playing reserve grade for a while?
Yeah, it was definitely a mindset back then, I guess, and certainly not frustrated at all. The fact that I was even in the mix was fantastic. So I enjoyed every moment of being a reserve for under 23s. Went on to play a bit of reserve grade under Alan Thompson, who was a great coach and a great bloke. Um, and also reserve grade at the time was full of first graders coming back from injury, internationals coming back from injury or out of form. And for whatever reason, I was mixing with Noel Cleal and Paul Vaulton. And, these guys are superstars in my eyes.
Yeah.
And even prior to that, like you're there at the training oval with Phil Blake. Now, Phil Blake, to me, is one of the greatest, most talented footballers to play the game. And
Great.
he
Great.
he could do things with a leather ball in the wet, but like today they play with a balloon, and Phil Blake did it with a leather ball, and
I know.
there's sort of things that I grew up loving him too, and he's a mate of my brothers, but and I know Blakey well, but they were superstars, they were royalty, and yeah, I mean, just to be around those blokes, like you're just so proud, and so no, reserve grade didn't bother me. In fact, it was a promotion to get there. As I said, I loved Alan Thompson. He was very good to me, and yeah, he encouraged us. I didn't probably give myself, I guess, the lack of self confidence or whatever, the chance of being good enough for first grade at the time. So I was prepared to take the time and develop. And I remember talking to Ron Willie, and he said, "Look, you need to be 100 kilos to play first grade." And I think I was 85 or something at the time, and he encouraged me to do other training, so that was good. And I had wonderful parents supporting me. So, but yeah, look, to be in the mix, even reserve grade, 86, 87, 88, I played a fair bit. 89 played reserve grade, and then yeah, things started to change when Graham Lowe come along.
That's right. He gave you your debut. All your hard work and patience has paid off. So what was it like seeing your name on the team sheet for your
Yeah.
first grade debut? Coming off the bench, like, do you remember how you got the news? Did you sleep that week? Like,
Uh,
what was that whole journey?
I started the game in at Leichhardt 1990. And ironically, it was where Dad played his footy because he was with the Balmain Juniors. And look, the proudest moment of my life. I really, in hindsight, may have set the bar too low, but that to me was the epitome of everything. I played first grade, ran on for first grade for Manly, and Lowy was excellent. He was instilling confidence in you, and he still reckons that my parents were the proudest parents he's ever seen when he announced that I was going to play, which I'm quite proud of. But the game was quite interesting. It was the day that they had all the hail. They nearly called the game off. It hailed that bad. And
You nearly missed your debut.
no, but during the game was started, and Eddie Ward nearly called it off during the game, but they decided to play him. But once again, I'm playing against blokes like Benny Elias, Paul Siren, and these are guys I feel like asking for their autograph still. So
Yeah, man.
I just loved it. I loved being around that. We went well. We won the game. Cliffy's genius and Michael O'Connor's genius won the game. And yeah, look, that's history. So certainly one of the proudest moments. I'll never forget it as I live.
Absolutely, man. So, like, you're getting coached by Kiwi legend Graham Lowe. Like, what's it like playing under him, but also alongside your Jeff Toovies, your Cliffy Lyons, Michael O'Connor's,
Yeah.
David Hosking, Marty Bella, Ian Roberts. You had a stack side. Like,
It's not a
yeah, it
bad
must be
list. Yeah.
pretty
Yeah.
great,
Yeah.
jumping in for those blokes.
Yeah. I mean, Graham Lowe will be one of the greatest men I've ever met in my life. Great coach. He internationalized the game, I believe, and just gave us the ammunition or the confidence to go out and do your best. We had Matthew Ridge. We had Cast Tony Iro, Kevin Iro. But as you said, Munster and Dave up front, Mule. Second rowers and back rowers only go as good as the front rowers let them. They'll do the denting. They'll dent the line, and the rest of us, we got the easy job. They do the hard stuff. And Mule reminds you about it every now and then. But we certainly had great front rowers. Mule and Marty Bella were fantastic. So it made our life pretty good.
Yeah, not bad being outside like your Cliffy Lions and all of them. Not bad
Jeff
at all.
Tuvey. Yeah. It's It's not easy because it's very fast and it's hard and physical, but yeah, to be around that talent was very special.
I bet it was, mate. I bet. So, 1990 was the year you made really great progress in your career. 23 premiership matches, going into the playoffs, finishing fourth on the ladder. Just sort of start pinching yourself and think, shit, I've kind of made it here. Like,
Yeah,
I'm doing all right.
I they were dreams. But Lowy was very good at keeping it in perspective. He just kept us from, getting big heads and kept us from getting carried away with ourselves. He was great. It was only really his health that sort of stood in the way of us probably doing a bit better because he was pretty sick at the time, and he was off and off to doctors and stuff, and we were a bit worried about him too. Plus, he took on the state of origin role, I think, in '91, and I don't know if he probably should have, but he just loved it so much and he couldn't help himself too. But no, he was brilliant, and yeah, we had some special times, like some of those games. To me, to play against Balmain, like
Yeah.
these guys, Laurie Daly, Ricky Stewart. I mean, they made me look stupid a few times, but like Paul Harrigan, I remember having a bit of a run-in with Chief, and I grabbed him and I sort of said, yeah, whatever. And he said, you'll lose. You know that, don't you? And didn't tell him that, but I think I probably agree with him. But yeah, he was awesome to play against. And Newcastle were fantastic. I mean, every club had their stars. And, I just still, as I said, I feel like I get my autograph book out after the game. I just felt so privileged to be amongst some great players.
Yeah, man. Well, speaking of Newcastle, you would have come up against Kiwi Sam Stewart, the captain of the Knights. You must have had a couple of good battles with him, surely.
Love Sammy, great bloke. Did actually had a couple of really good battles.
Yeah.
He had the beers like most of your Kiwis do. I suppose you got the best legs. You got also Filipino. You got these blokes. They're tree stumps, and
Yeah.
it's not fair. You're just too. They're too solid. They were big men, and they were good men, and they were very hard to tackle. So,
Yeah, man.
yeah,
I
Sammy
got
Stewart. That's a blast from the past, but a great bloke.
he's a great bloke. I got to meet him last year when I come over to the Gold Coast. Like,
Yeah,
absolute champion guy.
he's a
Seriously.
fantastic guy.
Yeah, man. So you actually scored 5 tries in your first season, like your first full season. So how special was it, going over for a few tries and like you're in first grade. What's that feeling like? When you score a try in a big game.
Yeah.
How good's that?
Some of it was out of fear. I think I'm just scared of getting caught but no, look, I was pretty lucky. As I said, you play off Cliffy, sometimes you might run into a brick wall, but sometimes you get through a gap too. And Jeff Turvey and Cliffy were brilliant in the halves. And yeah, I formed a pretty good combination with Cliffy too, and he looked after me very well. So to cross the line in first grade, or even to get on like TV, you're on TV and they're televising the game, and yeah, it was pretty special and good fun to get people having a go at you about things. And yeah, so the family enjoyed it too. It was just quite interesting.
All right, man. So you went into the playoffs and you're taking on the Balmain Tigers. They've been to the last 2 grand finals. So they had their amazing side that we sort of touched on a few players, Surinans, Wayne Pearce, Gary Freeman, Blocker Roach, Timmy Brasher. And so what's your thoughts about going into the playoffs and you got to take on this superstar Balmain Tigers side?
Yeah, it certainly was. And I think we had a few injuries at the time and a few blokes were a bit knocked up. But yeah, we knew we were in for a tough one, and they were great times. There was 70,000 people at the ground, and it was
Wow.
a lot of people hate Manly. We've got a lot of good supporters, but as you know, a lot of people don't like Manly, and I think you might take that jumper off after this is finished. But there's another story there. But no, look, it was yeah, just exciting. Like to go, and I'll never forget running out. Even I imagine the guys that played Origin and played for Australia. We ran out for 70,000 people, and a lot of them loved Manly, a lot of them didn't. But it's an amazing atmosphere, and every player will tell you that it's something that you have to experience to really understand why you get driven to play at that level.
Yeah. So what's that intensity like? That whistle goes off, that first hit up's being carried. What's
Yeah,
that first tackle like, and
yeah.
that,
Well,
that
it's
intensity of
interesting.
the
Yeah,
forwards coming together?
first grade football is very fast, and I remember Ian Roberts saying after a few games that he said that was easy as quick as Origin, which I didn't play Origin, but he said that was probably as quick as Origin, and I think wow, because yeah, it is that fast. But it's very physical too. Even back then, it was very physical. But the interesting, I was looking the other day I've got my old jersey hanging up,
Yeah.
and I was cleaning out stuff, and the thickness of the jersey, it was like a blanket compared to today. Like
They
what
are,
you're
right?
wearing today now is like a fraction of the thickness. So we were running around in these jerseys that were so heavy. And if you get wet or sweat and that, they get heavier. And, I look at the guys today. I don't have the build to put one of these jerseys on. They're too tight. But yeah, like it was a different game that way too, because we were running around with these really thick jerseys on. And yeah, that was mad, but we did
That
it.
was
And
cool.
yeah, very, very physical. Like the semi-finals in particular they start fast, and you're literally sprinting the whole way. So
Wow.
good
Must
times.
be must be crazy getting back on defense, like just relentless, like that fitness required to just maintain, be on side all the time and be ready for anything. Because like even just playing touch footy, like,
Yeah,
you know, if you're just slightly off, like someone like you only have to touch someone to touch, and I still can't do that sometimes, like the
yeah.
fitness
That,
required. It must be
that's
amazing.
true. And as I said, people don't understand blokes like Dave Hoskins and Marty Bella. They played for 80 minutes in these thick jumpers, and they were carrying a bit of weight at the time. Like they weren't fat; they were just carrying weight. For
Yeah,
blokes to do that is a pretty
yeah,
special motor, and these guys have got engines that are bigger than buses. They won't ever be recognised, I guess, for making 60-yard dashes or anything. But what those guys did, and we ran off the back of, was they dented the line. And
yeah,
today you got the Penrith team doing the same thing with their Isaiah Yo and their front rowers denting the line, and sets up the blokes
yeah.
to do their stuff at the back. So you're getting that momentum is so important. And Marty Bella and Dave Hoskins did it for us, and it was fantastic because it made the back rowers' job a bit easier too.
You wish there was sort of a space for those sort of bigger forwards in the game now because everyone's just so stripped now. You got to be like, there's no more George Roses, Mark Tukey's.
No,
They're
that's
sort of the
right.
last of
Yeah,
those big front
no, that's
rowers. They're
right.
sort of gone now.
And I love the 80 minutes. I mean, if you got to do the 80 minutes, you're really testing yourself out.
Yeah,
I remember having a conversation with Alan Langer, and he, 5 minutes before half time, before full time, he used to just run amok because he knew the guys were tired, and he read the game
yeah,
like no one else. And twos were the same, but they didn't have the problems that the bigger guys had because they were a lot smaller. But the 80 minutes was a challenge in itself. It was to be able to make the 80 minutes. These days they don't do it, and that would be hard, I think, for me to digest, to get 20 minutes in each half. I probably wouldn't feel as though I'd contributed as much, I guess. And
okay.
yeah, I don't miss. I'm glad I got to play that rule.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of players I've talked to, and Nat Wood sticks out the most to me. He hated being a bench player. Because they weren't always playing many minutes. Because if you
Yeah,
started, you were pretty much on for the whole game, bar injury, unless
yeah,
you got
that's right.
hooked or
That
whatever.
that was the
So now
mentality.
being a bench player is part of the game day 17. It's
Yeah,
all like you're in the
yeah.
17, not on the bench
It's
as such.
not 13 anymore, and it's 17. And the coaches need to have people firing 5 and 10 minutes before half time, like sprinting. So, you have to rotate your stuff to be able to do that. And it certainly is a different game that way, because we played the first 40 and then the second 40, like you say, without barring injury, you play the game. But now they factor in, you're going to play 20 minutes in the first half and probably rotate your front rowers, which, it's a different way of looking at it.
Yeah, so you definitely would say if you had to gun to your head, if you had to have an answer, do you prefer your era or you prefer the modern era of how the forwards are rotated? What would you
Oh,
prefer?
yeah, no, definitely playing 80 minutes, mate. And you be a good question to ask other players. I think the 80 minutes was great. I just think you couldn't get enough, especially when things are going well. But imagine when you're not going well, it would be hard. But yeah, no, I don't think I could handle playing to 20 minutes or coming off the
Yep,
bench. It was very difficult. It's actually a hard thing to do, to come off and pick up the pace of the game, to pick up
yep.
the momentum, and it's not easy being a bench player at all. So yeah, I don't know if I was cut out for today's game, but yeah, no, I'm very happy with what happened. So
Ah, nice, nice. Right, so getting back to those your semi-finals, you had that win over the Tigers. It was 16-0, fantastic result. You move on to week 2 of the finals. You're coming up against the Broncos,
Yeah.
a side that's very much on the rise. So how are you prepared to take on Wayne Bennett and his absolute champion Brisbane Broncos?
Yeah, they were riding high at the time. They sort of 88 thing come in and, I think they'd won the comp already, I think, or maybe not, but they were really riding high. They were full of internationals. And, once again, it was like, I got me boots in my bag and I got my autograph book. But, Alan Langer and, G Miles and
Yeah.
guys that were just superstars of the game, and you're up there and out there against them. And I guess that's where the blokes like Martin Bella and Ian Roberts, they were very good at, because they were in that company too, and they'd just pull us aside and say, look, they're only human, and they've got legs. So, but one of the best bits of advice I was given was probably from Ian Roberts. He said, look, whatever you do, just get involved early. Like, you try and do the first tackle or the first hit up. And it sort of was a bit of a thing for me, because if you stand back a bit or get yourself out of the play, the longer you wait, the longer you'll take to get into the game. And by getting involved early, it was a real good confidence booster. So that was good advice I hung onto and tried to apply. But yeah, they were great times. I mean, you're a little bit starstruck a bit, but not supposed to be. But Alan Langer's just a casual bloke, and he's a terrific bloke. He'd be feeding a scrum and he'd be looking at the scoreboard, and he'd be talking to the opposition saying, we got you, blokes, we got you by 10 points. And it was a conversation that was almost lighthearted and joking, but he just cunning. He was just very, very smart. But it was great to be able to play against those blokes too.
Interestingly, about Alan Langer, I think he was one of those guys who got unbelievably nervous before every match, have a cigarette and a big spew, and like you just would never have known that about him because he was such a good player. Like, could rip people to bits.
He mastered it in the end. He was brilliant for many years. But there's some good stories about him looking at races that were on the race track on the scoreboard, telling the referee he wasn't going to feed the ball till the race had finished. So they're good stories. But so unfortunately we went down to Brisbane. I remember pretty well because Lowy was proud but disappointed, and we certainly gave it a good shot and put ourselves in the map of the top 4 team, and we were that way for 3 or 4 years at least, and then obviously more after that. But my time with Lowy sort of come to an end 93, 94. So, but certainly great times.
Yeah. So what did Graham Lowe, how did Graham Lowe treat you guys in the preseason? What was a typical preseason back in those days? Did he flog the crap out of you guys? Was there any harsh, stuff you had to do to really get
we trained at Narrabeen Fitness Camp, which is notorious for hills. Okay. And the thing with Lowy is that he doesn't really. He gets angry, but he doesn't. He was calm, but he was like a silent assassin. If he wasn't happy, you'd walk up and after a big 5-kilometer hill run, and he'd look at you and go, and look at his watch and go, "Do you accept that?" And you'd say, "Yeah." And he'd say, "Well, I don't. Get going again." Casual as you like, but just brutal. So you soon learn not to mix with Lowy. That you didn't take him lightly. He was very serious. So we got flogged. We were involved with the army barracks, where we started doing a lot of boxing against each other, which was like on your knees and punching the living daylights out of each other. And of course, I had bloody Ian Roberts because he was a second row partner. And it was like, oh, geez. I wanted to get Tony Iro because Tony's pretty casual, and but look, they were different times. So it was hard training, very hard training. So
it is.
Yeah.
Oh, brilliant, man. So, at 91, like you said, you guys were a pretty dominant top 4 side. You went back to the playoffs in 1991. You had to play the North Sydney Bears this time, and they put on a bit of a masterclass, and the Bears got you on this occasion.
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't normally happen, but they had one of those great seasons. So what's it like, taking on your Billy Moore? He was fired up that game. He was on fire.
Gary Larson, Billy Moore, Mario Fennick. Yeah, they were on a roll. They had a really good couple of years there, and there's a bit of a thing between Manly and Norths at the time. We're only 5 kilometres apart, and we didn't really get on. And we were, no one gets on with Manly. Everyone hated us. But there was definitely some rivalry there, and yeah, unfortunately they got the cookies on the day, but yeah, just once again to be playing semi-final football was fantastic, and we certainly were up there again in '91. So yeah, good times.
Yeah, man. And moving on, you played the Raiders in the next round, and it was a day for back rowers where Gary Coyne, of
Scored,
all people,
yeah,
scored 4 tries. Like,
yeah. I know.
who ever saw that coming?
I'm responsible for one of those tries.
I
Um,
know.
no, he was phenomenal, but he was on the back of some pretty handy front rowers too. I think Brent Todd and Glenn
Yeah,
Lazarus, I think, were there, and yeah, look, they were a great pack. Bradley Clyde, and they were just awesome. But yeah, we certainly gave it a pretty good shot, and you would have seen there's a couple of blokes that don't get a lot of mentions, of Frankie Stokes, Craig Hancock.
yeah.
Um, they were Chris White, Glenn Bourne. They were players that were just kids and getting a shot because Lowy was good at that. He put players in on form, and they got to play on the big stage, and they didn't let themselves down, and they didn't let the team down because they were great
Yeah.
players.
Well, as a spectacle, it was a wonderful match. When you watch it back, it's just like tit for tat tries, and but yeah, the
Yeah.
whole Gary Coyne thing. That's probably still a record: 4 tries by a back rower in a final. I don't think that's ever happened again. That's crazy.
Nah, he was pretty much lucky that day, but he certainly, yeah, did get 4
Yeah.
tries. I'm reminded of it a lot.
Oh mate. So 1992, you played the full season, 4 tries to your name. You finished runner-up in the Rothmans Medal for the best and fairest player in the Winfield Cup. So how special was it for you? You think back to your under 23s bench, you see your name, you're
Yeah,
proud of that. Now you're second, second
yeah.
place on the Rothmans Medal list.
Um,
How'd that make you feel?
that was a bit of a shock actually. I didn't even sort of factor myself in, but um, 92 sticks out as probably the best year I had at Manly, and David Hoskins and myself did a lot of extra training. We did a lot of boxing, and he's a fantastic bloke to be training with because he's got this massive engine in him, and he just keeps going. And he's been a great mate of mine for a long time, still is. But yeah, it's a big help to me, and we did all this extra training. And at the time, it sort of had the options that you had. Today, you wouldn't do it because they wouldn't let you do any more extra training because they do enough, and but we had to do it, and we did it, and we benefited from it greatly because I just found myself. I think I was 25 and as fit as I'd ever been, I think, and yeah, and really starting to believe in the fact that I actually belonged in a team with Ian Roberts and Martin Bella rather than
Right.
being someone that was just lucky to be there, I guess. But
Okay.
you started to believe yourself, and yeah, I benefited from it and had a really good year.
Okay.
And
So what would you think is the thing that you brought to the team that you contributed every week that helped your side to succeed? I guess you finally got that self belief, but what do you think you brought to the team?
yeah, definitely the self belief was there. But oh look, I as I said, I worked my game pretty well because we had to go forward with Munster and Dave, and I was pretty good at reading my play off that. So once they were going forward, I could get out wide, and I got long legs, and I managed to use them a few times.
Yeah,
But yeah, I was able to use that with Ian Roberts, and um, yeah, Owen Cunningham was a massive part of the team, and
yeah,
we were surrounded like we were workers, and like between Ian Roberts, Owen Cunningham, and myself, we do all the work. Like the tackling wasn't something that we took for granted, so we did it, and yeah, I was very confident the players standing beside me, and their confidence just spread through the team. So Jeff Tuvey in the back line, Cliff Lyons, Michael O'Connor. Yeah, we were Matthew Ridge at the back, so we were
yeah.
confident.
Nice, nice, man. So, how tough is it to bring a high standard every week to first grade? Like, because for me, like I'm a long distance runner. Like I could pull something big out of the bag, but then I don't necessarily want to back that up a week later. Like I
Yeah,
don't want to run a marathon every week. How do you bring that A grade, of your game to
I
first
think
grade every week?
yeah that's where the real skill of the coach is with Graham Lowe at the time, and he recognised that. And unlike an Origin series, which is 3 games, like you can play it on emotion, but you can't play 26 weeks on emotion because you become
No.
mentally tired, emotionally tired, and you really have to have, like, and this is where the Wayne Bennett's of the world, I suppose, a Graham Lowe, that they've got the techniques to get players performing for 26 weeks, which is really, really hard to do. And I could never coach because I had enough trouble looking after myself. But I guess it comes down to self-management. You look after yourself after a game. We sort of didn't at the start, but towards the end, we sort of started to realise that you can't go and have 20 schooners after a game and train the next day. But you felt like it, but you couldn't. And the education started to creep in that, psychology was a big part of the game. I consulted a sports psychologist who was brilliant, Mr. Eric Fleming, and he taught me things that you sort of, that today they're part of the staff, but you can't control things that are out of your control, so don't spend time thinking about them because you'll waste physical energy. And these sort of things he helped me with, as well as Lowy and all the staff, that you've got a job to do, and all you've got to do is really concentrate and do that job. Don't take on other problems. Don't worry about other people's problems. And it's a technique that actually helped me a lot.
Nice, man.
Right,
Nice.
Yeah.
So back in your day, obviously you all worked full time. So I'm just curious today, what did you do for a job, and how did you juggle footy and working?
Well, this is going back to the story I was going to tell you, because I was a policeman at Mona Vale.
Really?
I was in the police force. So
Nice.
everyone hates police, everyone hates Manly. And when I came up to Queensland, everyone hates New South Wales players. So
the trifecta.
yeah. And then they asked me up here at Queensland if I wanted to do a referee's ticket. And I said, listen, I've got no friends as it is. So, but mate, Dave, I was in the police force at Mona Vale through my Manly time, and it was fantastic because the police were smart enough to recognise that we could be an asset in helping get messages across to school kids in particular. I did a lot of schoolwork. I had a great little program called the First Offenders Program, where if kids got unstuck and it was their first time, they could do some community service and they wouldn't have a record. And I must admit, it was a perfect distraction for me from the footy. And I think I played better because of it. So I was in the police force, but they were very, very cooperative as far as the rosters go. They were aware of football commitments, and they worked well with us. So, yeah, it was great. It was really, really good times.
That's incredible, man. I actually love hearing the stories how so many, companies that looked after the footy players so that you could still work and look after your family or whatever, but also follow your dreams at the same time. That's so cool.
It was pretty smart of the police force too, not so much for me because I wasn't at a high profile, but we had Phil Daly, we had Paul Sirenen. There was quite a few, Paul Harrigan, I think, or Dave Harrigan, but there was a few coppers that played footy, and Cole Vandervoort was another one I was in the academy with, and it was smart of the coppers to say, well, look, we could use these guys, and we were happy to reciprocate. So it was a win-win then, definitely.
Absolutely, it was. So things are going nicely for you at Manly until 1994. You only played the one game all season. So what happened in 94? Were you injured, or did you just kind of fall out of favour with Bob Fulton? Because I know Dave Hosking went through a similar thing with Bob Fulton. So it didn't quite work.
Look, I don't like making excuses. I did have a bad accident in the end of 93, I think it was. I was helping a mate move into his house, and he dropped the washing machine on my Achilles tendon, and I had to have surgery, and it really was. I had trouble getting back. They'd brought in Mark Carroll. They'd brought in a few players, and I wasn't in a good place mentally. So I did get back. I think one game in '94, I think it was, and my relationship with the coach wasn't as good as the previous coach, so I didn't really hit it off. And so they also had blokes like Danny Gartner and Steve Menzies, Nick Kasef coming along, and I soon learned that business is business, and I fell out. So very difficult for me, especially because Manly was my dream. The injury was an accident; it wasn't intentional, so I wasn't. It was just disappointing, and it was a very hard time for me mentally to go forward. I'd actually left the police force. I was trying to apply myself full time to the football, which I think was a mistake in hindsight. But yeah, I mean, I'd fallen out of favour with the coach, and they promised me a place there, but they didn't really come through with the promise, and I
Okay.
was sort of left on the heap, I guess, and until a phone call from Daryl Vandervelde sort of changed it. So he gave me a bit of a lifeline, and Bobby Lidner, who I played against, was a terrific bloke. He
Yep.
was coach, and Daryl Vandervelde, who I just can't speak highly enough. They were very professional. Dick Turner, Tosser Turner, was just a fantastic bloke. Even though they're Queensland through and through, they just looked after us fantastic. Like, we're a new club coming into the competition, 88, 95. And, there was a lot of excitement around it. They saw us as probably mentors for the young kids coming through.
Okay.
They were aware that I was pretty much on one leg at the time. And, I probably didn't contribute on the field as much as I'd like to, but it was still great to be part of a new club. And,
Yeah.
yeah, so great come up. But as I said, I come up as a ex-Copper, ex-Manly player, and ex-New South Wales person. So I wasn't that popular in Queensland.
I can imagine. So what's it like though, as a player, like you've got this new ARL competition, four new clubs, the Crushers sign you up. And what's it like being part of a new side? Everything's all kind of buzzing and you've got all these new players being thrown together. You've got a coach who's, got to learn his team. Like what's that whole
Yeah,
experience like developing a
yeah,
culture and a style as a
very
side?
interesting. Very interesting too, because you've got players like Garrick Morgan and Anthony Herbert have come across from Australian Rugby Union, and
Right.
St. John Ellis and Mike Ford from the English Rugby League. And, we had the mix of Mario Fennick and Trevor Gilmeister and, like
Yeah.
Mark Hone. There was some fantastic players, Chris McKenna.
Yep.
Um, it was very exciting. And on paper, it was a fantastic side. But you realise after a few games how it does take time to gel as a unit. And there is a lot more to be. And I've watched a few teams over the years, and just because they're good names on paper, it certainly doesn't mean they're going
Yeah.
to be a force. And we struggled a lot. There was, as you say, Bobby Lidner was a terrific bloke, wonderful player. And he said himself he was very new at this coaching business, and he said it was very difficult. So we
I
had a couple of years under him, and then a guy called Steve Bleatley took over in the Crushers, and I still think Steve should be coaching first grade today. He was a brilliant coach,
bet.
just a young guy, and Redcliffe boy, and he's involved with the Dolphins now, I believe. But yeah, they were exciting times, and it was great to see the competition expand. When I come up from New South Wales, I remember speaking to Brad Fittler one day because we were on the players representative board, and I just said, mate, I come from New South Wales, but the rugby league in Queensland is so strong, and
Yeah.
they can't shy away from it. If they want games at Suncorp, let them have it. It's so good, and the grassroots are still strong up here. So
Okay.
yeah, it's exciting.
Brilliant. Yes, so like you said, the Crushers, like pretty tough couple of seasons. I think the first year you got the 6 wins and a draw. Was it quite frustrating after being at such a successful club to sort of be like one rung off the bottom of the ladder at the end of the season? It's
Yeah,
got to be a pretty tough change of momentum for you.
yeah, it was difficult, and mentally, I wasn't in a great place. With the injuries, I still was on one leg until I had surgery again, and um, yeah, it was a very difficult time, and my heart was at Manly, obviously, and
Yeah,
it was very hard to separate. But you've got to be professional. You were being paid as a professional, and Daryl Vanderweer was very good to me. As I said, Dick Turner was very good. Trevor Gilmeister was excellent too.
yeah,
He's been a journeyman, and I don't know why he wasn't made captain. I don't know why they picked Mario, but he was fantastic, Trevor. And yeah, Gilly still to this day has been a great mate. But yeah, look, they were great times. I was very sad to see them fold. We
yeah,
it was more a case, I think, of bit of mismanagement too. I think they could have gone on. It was certainly uh, worth the second team in Brisbane, and they've proven that now. But when you look at players like Travis Norton and Chris McKenna and Danny Nutley and Quinton O'Brien, well, there were some young players that went on to great things. and
Yeah.
that was a nursery that should have been protected, which I was disappointed that they didn't. And look at that, and the Gold Coast wasn't the answer at the time. I still don't know if it is because it's so hard to play first grade football at the Gold Coast because of the place it is.
Yeah.
So getting
Yeah.
the Gold Coast to take up the Crushers wasn't the answer, I thought.
Okay, interesting, interesting. So did were you actually a professional as of 1995? Like were you all paid
Yeah,
as
yeah, I
full-time
was,
players?
I was, yeah, I was, and I
Okay.
still to this day, I think it was the wrong thing for myself. I think the best days was when I was distracted, and I think you can have too much football,
Okay.
and in hindsight, I think that players are better off to have another interest, and
Okay.
certainly, especially now because it's so full on. Like we were training twice a day, and you were getting sick of seeing the side of these blokes sometimes, and you didn't have that enjoyment and the. It took a lot of the fun out of it, I guess. It was more
I
become
guess.
like a job, and they introduced folders and homework, and it just was different.
Okay. That makes sense. It's like, you play touch footy in summer because you enjoy it,
Yeah,
after work because it's fun.
yeah,
Just like
yeah.
you're back in the day, like when
Yeah,
you
that's
played.
true. That's very true.
Yeah.
And as I said, we played like my juniors. We played the best of the fairest. Got a pair of bootlaces, and you won your bootlaces. You're king of the hill. Like that was
I
fantastic.
love it. That's gold.
Yeah, like and going through the grades and playing first grade, like we weren't on big money. Like we weren't like you around a few players that were on big money, but they sort of deserved it, and you didn't really have an issue with it. But you spoke to David Hoskins, and we played because we loved it. We just
Yeah.
loved it, and we loved that Manly jersey, and like we after the game sometimes we used to grab each other's hand and just say, mate, how good is this? We
Yeah.
actually said, how good is this? And we
Yeah.
were on Brookie Oval together. So, yeah, great
Yeah.
times.
Did you find the supporters back in those days were more passionate versus now? Because the players were passionate about their clubs, so the fans were passionate for their
Yeah,
players.
I think so. I think they were because it's very much a business now, as you know, and you don't blame players for like the Penrith 5'8" lawyer who's gone
Yeah.
to Tigers. Like he's won 3 premierships. He's going to get paid. West Tigers, perfect superannuation setup, but you can't really blame Blake for doing that. Like
Not at all.
back in our day, to leave your club, like you were
Yeah.
a one club man, and you wouldn't even think of that. So
Yeah.
they're different times, but I can totally understand why he's done it, and good on him.
Yeah.
But that wasn't something that we did in those days because you did your best and you wanted to be there forever. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's
I
different
love it.
times.
Yeah, man. So that whole Super League war that came in during your time at the Crushers, did that affect the whole Crushers, like folding and all of that type of thing?
No, look,
Because
a lot of people say it did. I tend to disagree. I think there was a
okay,
little bit of other stuff went on, and I'm not really privy to say too much about it. A few of the people not here anymore, but um, no, it was just disappointing that they did come to that. But I always say that the Super League happened for a reason. Like it didn't come out of we're going to try and it happened for a reason, and maybe things weren't going as good as they could, and they saw other opportunities. So I don't have a problem with Super League. I thought they were probably looking after the players better, and it certainly changed the way the game was run and how players were looked after. So it did
yeah,
bring on some good things.
okay,
So yeah, no, it was interesting times. Certainly, it attracted, I think, from the game as far as we weren't playing against the best, and even the Super League weren't playing against the best because it was sprinkled in 2 competitions.
yeah.
And fortunately, it didn't last long. But no, it wasn't a good chapter for the NRL.
No, it wasn't. Did you find it odd playing in such a small competition after
Yeah,
playing so many
definitely.
sides,
Yeah,
like 2 years before?
yeah, and you missed the playing against the Broncos, and I had mates like Wayne Simons and Wayne Collins and guys that had gone to Super League that I wasn't playing against or with anymore, and you miss that. So
Yeah,
um,
yeah,
it certainly was second tier sort of stuff, and yeah, didn't feel as good as it should. And I still run around on one leg, but I got to play a few games. I actually got to captain the side once, and In my last game against West, it was at Suncorp Stadium, and respectfully, it was the day that Lady Diana Spencer died, on the 31st of August, 97.
Wow.
And that was my last game. And I played against Desi Hasler, who was playing for West.
Right.
He had a certain person gave him a brown paper bag full of green notes, and he got to play for West that year. And I played against him, and I scored a try, and that's my claim to fame in my last game, 31st of August 97. It's on the history records that I scored a try, and I'll tell everyone it was a chip over the top and 50 metres, but it was probably about 5 metres, or I fell over the line. But we beat West in the last game, and Des Hasler's last game and my last game, and yeah, so I'm taking it to the grave with me.
Yeah, John Jones got the chocolates on the day.
Got the chocolates, beat Desi, stepped Desi to score under the post at Suncorp. So it's not a bad way to go out. Not a bad way to go out.
Very good, mate. Right, when you look back at your career, is there any one moment or game that stands out above the rest?
There is a couple, but 92 with Lowy was very special. I got a man of the match at Brookie Oval one day, and coming off the field, Mum and Dad were there, and I still get emotional thinking about it. But just I'd reached the top of the game in 92, and Brookie Oval, Manly jersey on, and Lowy was just the man he was, and the support he was, and he brought my parents into the dressing room, and I could have said then that I was in heaven, and it was pretty good.
That's beautiful, man. Yeah, love it. That's what it's all about, eh? You want to make your parents proud. You want to make your coach proud, your teammates proud.
Yeah, it was pretty good.
And yourself, of course, it's beautiful. That's awesome, man. So I always finish with a couple of quick questions. So obviously, it's pointless asking who you support in the NRL. I'm sure you're going to say Manly, so we'll bypass that one. So
still do, mate. Still do.
Non-league related. What's your favourite TV show or series of all time?
Favorite TV show. So I was in the Coppers, so I didn't mind the old Copper shows.
Yeah.
I love the Law and Order series. Shawshank Redemption is a favorite movie, hands down.
That's a great movie.
Yeah. So, but we spent a bit of time in front of the movies. So
cool, man. Do you remember a show? I used to watch it as a kid in New Zealand called Blue Heelers. That's an Aussie one.
Yeah, that was a Coppers
show.
I think it was, but no, it wasn't up there with the favourites, but yeah, certainly watched it.
Yeah. Just sprung to mind.
Yeah. I got all the Netflix these days. I've got three beautiful daughters and a wife, and I don't get to pick any shows anymore. But
it sounds like a lot of chick flicks.
There is, mate. There is. So
brilliant. Okay, last question, man. If you could only eat one meal for the rest of your life, what would it be?
A meal.
Yep.
One meal. Okay, I could pretty much tell you it's going to be an eye fillet steak or lamb cutlets, crumbed.
Beautiful. So. Yeah. Just chuck in a dessert. What would you have for dessert?
Mate, I'm a massive carrot cake and coffee man. I love me carrot cake. So
beautiful.
Yeah.
Love a good carrot cake.
I've got to sing out to one. I just got to sing out to one player I mentioned. I seen a thing we did with Mark Graham not long ago on your show, and Mark was involved with our side at Manly with Lowy a lot, and he's one of those special men that I've met in the game, and had a lot to do with my success. So I made the point I wanted to mention that he was a fantastic man for me, and one of my favourites. And I see you did something with him not long ago, and as I said, I probably don't belong on this program, but I'm very very humble for having me.
Mate, you absolutely belong on this program. Just bit of self-belief, mate. Bit of self-belief. You absolutely do. Right, my man. Thank you so much for coming. Thanks for coming on the podcast, man. Absolute treat to me. I love your stories. Love hearing the passion for Manly. I don't care if you don't support Manly. We love all the NRL clubs, and it's very special to meet every player that comes on the show. So thanks so much, man.
Mate, it's a pleasure to catch up with people like yourself too, mate. Yeah, great for the game.
Oh, mate, it's my pleasure. Thanks, everyone, for listening out there and watching. Make sure you follow the show. And thanks again for John Jones. Thanks for coming on the show. I've been your host, Dave, and we'll catch you next time for Kickoff.
Thanks, Dave.
Full time.